Welcome to Connecting the Dots podcast, brought to you by The Collective. I am your host, Grace McNamara. Together, we look at business like a sports team. We'll connect the dots between every player in the team, the audience, and the essential plays that are often overlooked by leaders. With a strong gender-balanced focus, we'll bring together discussions from across many markets that connect women's health, purchasing powers, leadership strategies, and business growth. We'll be chatting with thought leaders, executives, and champions of modern business to uncover the stories of challenge, success, learning, and privilege, and what's coming down the track in our evolving world. Together, we'll connect strategies of best practice and celebrate the rising leaders ready to take us into the new era. Hello and welcome. Thank you guys for joining me. Herman in The Hague, I'm saying it correctly, in Amsterdam or in Netherlands, and Steffie Bryant in the UK. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. You guys do know each other to a point. This is great. So we're going to have some overlap of conversation that's familiar, but a lot of your careers have been completely separate. So we'll definitely talk about where the future lies of working together as well. So first off, let's get straight into it. Connect the dots first. Herman, will you go first? Where did you start in your career, and what's your story to bring you to where you are today?
Well, I don't know how much detail you want to hear, but let me start with. I've been in the fitness industry now for 31 years. So you both of you are a little bit older than 31, but not much, I think. So
thank you, Herman. We'll take all compliments. Welcome.
I spent 3 generations probably, and you only one. No, I started at a young age to enjoy sport. My parents were very sporty. Tennis was my sport, and I did some field hockey, which is very popular in the Netherlands, as you may know. And from that, I learned in sport about discipline. About perseverance. That it's okay to lose, but then analyze why did you lose and how can you next time make sure you're going to win. And winning is not everything, but participation is key. As the Olympic Games, of course, has, it's about participating and not about winning gold. But of course, you strive to get gold. No, but I have a business background, did business administration, and my first job was with Quaker Oats, selling pet foods. Very, very different from where I am today. Never had a pet, but selling pet foods was a great business. Then I went into pharmaceuticals. I was product manager for oral contraceptives in a company called Organon in the Netherlands. And then I moved into writing instruments with Schaefer Pen. Did that in Europe for about 7 years. And then I got into sports. I made from my hobby, tennis, my profession. I became the European Managing Director for Prince tennis rackets. Still very then big with Michael Chang, Jennifer Capriati. We had a lot of global players. It was a great job because I went to go to Paris Open, to the Australian Open, to Wimbledon, to the US Open to promote the brand. And from tennis, I did that for 7 years. I went into fitness. I was approached through a headhunter to come and join Live Fitness, first in Germany as the European Managing Director for Live Fitness. Spent in total 7 years, of which 4 years in Europe and the last 3 years in Chicago at the global headquarters for Live Fitness, where I in the end was Executive Vice President for Sales, Marketing, Service, and Product Development. And I moved there with my wife. I have 2 daughters, by the way, 2 wonderful daughters who then were studying in the Netherlands in university, and we had no problem leaving the country because they already left the house. We were empty nesters at that time. But my wife got homesick, and I decided to leave my job at Live Fitness, moved back to the Netherlands, and started my own company, doing some consulting for American companies who wanted to come to Europe, not necessarily in the fitness industry. And then I was approached while I was doing that by John McCarthy, God have him, so the founder of IHRSA, today Health and Fitness Association. And he asked me, we need a European to really help IHRSA in Europe. Can you do that? And I said, well, I maybe have 1 or 2 days spare in the week. I can maybe help you there. So I did that for 3 years. And then Harm Tegelaars, who then was a board member in IHRSA, said, why do we have an American association represent the industry in Europe, we need a European association to present the European industry. So he said, why don't you join me? We'll start Europe Active in Brussels. And this was 2007. And we started in Brussels. We rented an office. I hired a lady who was really doing the work. I was just helping in the background. And from there, we built what today is Europe Active, as a phenomenal, good organization representing the sector. After 3 years being sort of the CEO of the association, we hired Natalie Smeeman, a lady who became the executive director for Europe Active. She did a great job for 5 years. I became a board member. I'm still today involved as an ambassador for Europe Active. And the association has grown leaps and bounds. Of course, Jennifer Holsall, who is part of the collective, has played a major role as a board member, as well as sort of helping out in an interim situation after the CEO then left. And today I'm still involved with that. So from that, helping Europe Active, I was involved with SATS in the Nordics, the chain of 250 clubs in the Nordics, as a board member. And since Basic Fit went to the stock market in 2016, I've been a board member in Basic Fit. And I'm helping FIBO as an ambassador to become a little bit more global, and a few other things here and there with some companies, as an advisor or just to help in the background. So that's a little bit. So connecting the dots, you're asking for that, is really, I achieved in making from my hobby my profession. And that is really my love for sport. And I never was a very good tennis player or a very good hockey player, but good enough to enjoy it. and then becoming, from playing tennis to become, a key manager in Prince. And I love fitness as well, because you need fitness in order to be good at any sport. It's a fundamental thing to do for any sport. I was able to make that love come true in live fitness, and that was a fantastic company to work with. And then having experience on the operator side as well as the experience on the association side, it's a little bit of a made the circle whole sort of
love it.
Connecting the dots within all the stakeholders in the industry, and I still love doing that today, and hope to continue to that for a few more years.
Right.
God willing.
Well, there's a lot of diverse dots in there. So thanks for sharing those, Herman. I did not realize you worked not only in pet food, but in oral contraception. So that's very interesting. That's new information, Herman. I won't lie to you.
that was one of the few products in pharmaceuticals where marketing played a role. And that was my job in making sure that, and I'm talking about the 60s and the 70s, when oral contraception wasn't all that normal.
Well, again, the world of women and family planning abilities, thanks you, because contraception is a very important part of careers. So yes, absolutely essential for women to be able to plan their lives. So good job, good job. Yeah. And again, I actually a call out. We just said it beforehand, but shout out. So last summer we got chatting around the industry and women and leadership and balance and all that good stuff. And actually it was you, Herman, who inspired me to start the podcast, because I think you challenged me to talk more with some of the female leaders in the industry. I don't know who they are. I was like, I dabble on the outskirts of fitness sector. So I need to know more of them.
Grace, who are they? Just a side comment on that. The sad thing is, and I said this a few times at FIBO again, 10 years ago, in the top 20 fitness companies in Europe, because I'm also involved, as you know, with Europe Active, with Deloitte making the market report. The top 20 companies, of the top 3 had a female CEO. 3. Today, 0. Mm-hmm. That's not a good development.
We're not going in the right direction in all areas.
We'll get back to that later. We have female leaders in other levels of the organizations. But still, CEO level, it's very thin, and that is a sad thing. And I think we'll get to that topic. That needs a lot more attention. That's why I really applaud what you guys are doing with the collective, and really putting more emphasis on the fact that we need more diversity in the leadership. Maybe not just be male and female, but also other cultural backgrounds.
Diversity, yeah. And again, you
white old males.
yeah. Well, we just, as you rightly mentioned, right? This is about diversity of experience. In like your career, for example, has been diverse, and it's all led to the professional that you are today. So, but diversity of thought, diversity of experience based upon gender, ethnicity, country, company, all of those good things lead into a much more balanced business strategy that makes it more effective for a bigger population. But it was because of you, I actually reached out to Steffie last year as well. So hence we got connected last year. We only met at FIBO in person recently, so it's been a pleasure. Now, you mentioned 31 years, I think, Herman. So Steffie's younger than I am, 31, give or take. That's more or less Steffie's entire life.
I'm a little bit older than that, but I'll take 31. That'll do.
Age is just a number, right? Age is just
a number.
Yeah.
Aging like a fine wine, as they say.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So Steffie, over to you, because likewise, great sport and athletic story here as well. But connect the dots for us from where you started to where you are today, between your professional as well as your personal, because they also overlap.
Yeah. So I think best place to start is probably right back at the beginning. Horses are a big part of my life. I've ridden since probably before I could walk, and it has been everything that I do. I've competed from a young age, been on teams and, represented countries, etc. And it's in my DNA. It's what I do. I probably at a younger age thought I was going to do horses, but very quickly realized that I didn't want the horses to become something I didn't enjoy doing. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to do it because I loved it, and I wanted to be around them because I wanted to, not because that's where my paycheck came from, for etc.
Right.
And you do the typical thing, you dabble in a few things, try and figure it out. I think I started in doing psychology degree, very much realized that I didn't want to go off and study for 4 to 6 years of my life. So I somehow ended up in the fitness industry as a membership consultant, and very quickly realized that was the place that I wanted to be. We all know it's quite addictive, the industry. I started with a fantastic brand, which in Australia, Good Life Health Clubs, and I would really say that was the foundation of where my career started. They invested in their people a lot, particularly their membership consultants. And I mean, I can bring up a story later about one of the female leaders there actually telling me a very good story that has stuck with me my entire life. But I started there, worked my way through, and have been in gym operations since. I was at a point in my career back in Australia where I was doing what I was doing, and it was fantastic. But I knew that there was more that I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to ride. And unfortunately, the coaching within Australia is not as good as what it is here in Europe or within the UK. So I knew I wanted to move and have access to that coaching. So I was chatting to a mentor at the time, and he said to me, well, you can do what you do anywhere in the world, so why don't you go and do it? So the very next day I came in and resigned, and I think he looked at me and said, not what I meant, but packed my bags and ended up in the UK. So I actually started in the UK with no job, no real picture on what I was going to do. I literally landed in London and went, I'm going to make it work. And I started actually in Snap Fitness, and I was opening gyms and running their operations for a while. And then I actually moved into the tech space, and I've never looked back. So I used a product called Gym Sales with a man called Tristan, and was offered the opportunity to come on board there. And now obviously, 5, 6, oh, maybe, 6, 7 years later, actually, I am now within Keepme, and I haven't looked back. The horses are still very much a big part of my life, and I compete and still do that alongside of, and obviously have my own aspirations with that as well. And continue to work with that as well.
Well, I mean, first off, it's the horse riding, it's addictive, as you said. The industry is also, fitness is also addictive. So you've got two good addictions that you're working on there. I used to horse ride an awful lot as well, and I don't compete, so I'm very jealous. You've never got to the Olympics, is that right? But are you still aspirational for the Olympics?
Yeah, I am. It secretly burns in me. There's a lot that has to happen. We're not just talking about ourselves as athletes, but we've also got horses, and you have to have a string of horses behind you. But I'll continue chipping away, and like I like to be, the little dark horse that eventually appears.
Right. Fingers crossed.
Can I ask a question, Steffie, on that? How many hours a day or how many hours a week do you ride your horses? I mean, it must be every day, I guess.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So before, after work, I'm usually up at the stables. And it's not just the riding. I mean, the riding is probably the easy part. You at most you would do a 45-minute session, but it's the tacking up, it's the untacking, it's the therapy with them. They've got their massage rugs and they've got magnetic things, and then they've got to go in the field, and then you got to clean them out, and there's so much around it. But actually, that's the part I love. Don't get me wrong, I love riding, and when I'm on a horse, nothing else exists. My whole world could be falling apart outside of, but when I'm on the horse, it's just me and the horse. But it's also the bits around it as well.
But it must be expensive too. I mean,
yes, it is.
It's not one of the cheapest sports to practice.
No,
right?
Correct.
You need multiple horses to ride, I guess, and yeah.
And I guess that's the thing, would I absolutely love to go to the World Games and the Olympics? Absolutely. But I also have to keep a reality and think, there are people on our team, like if I look at the Australian team, that buy their way to the Olympics. They go and buy their next horse because they have the cash. So, you are competing with that. But that's just a reality of it. And you just got to graft a little bit harder.
I have a suggestion for you. Find a Saudi Arabian sponsor. There must be a prince who wants to sponsor your horses,
Steffie, Herman, I like where you're going with this. I won't lie, Steffie, this could work because there's still a massive demand for arranged marriage in Saudi. There's lots of princes on that list. Shazan is in the background helping a lot of us. He's got notions of marrying off loads of us. So Steffie, we may have to work on this. Herman, I like where your business hat's going there.
Absolutely. It's as you may know, we're working on FIBO Saudi. I'm involved with that project in October of this year, and the world is going to Saudi. The golf is there. I'm sure they'll do the Olympics one day. I'm sure they have the World Championships in soccer already on the program. It's unbelievable. Money is no object.
Steffie, we're on it. We're backing you here. You've got a backing team.
I'll make some contacts for you.
Thanks,
I'll be a matchmaker. Yeah.
I love it. I've aspirations of doing the Olympics as well, but I think it'll need to be like paddle or something that doesn't exist yet, where there's no competitors in Ireland, and I can be.
Oh, how great is it though, paddle? It's fantastic.
It's awesome. Yeah. Again, likewise, did it in Riyadh when we were there for the Beyond Active event.
Oh yeah,
so, yes, paddle is definitely in my future, I think.
Yeah, paddle is it's a fantastically fast-growing sport. I mean, it's much easier to learn than tennis. It's a lot of fun.
And less investment, no horses or horse boxes or stables or feed or vets. Interesting enough on the health side. So there's a horse tech conference, Steffie. Have you ever been to it?
No.
Fascinating. There's a GP, actually, an Irish GP out of Dingle, which I'd love to connect you with, who supports to organize this international horse tech, because the reality is, because horses have so much value and have a defined value to them, a lot of medications and techniques and treatments are tested on horses because there's a value placed upon keeping these horses healthy, wealthy, and moving. Yeah. So the horse tech is actually fascinating, where a lot of techniques that humans, or a lot of products that humans use today, are tested on horses first.
Oh, there you go.
It's fascinating. There you go now. So, horse tech conference in our future, Steffie.
Absolutely.
In Saudi, ideally, with the Saudi prince.
Exactly. Now we're connecting the dots, really. Yeah.
Now we're connecting the dots. Steph, you said you had a story that was worth sharing from your time in Australia.
Yeah, do you know what? You think about impacts, or people that make impacts in your life, don't you? And they make, even just little moments of your career. And I remember starting as a membership consultant, and we went to training, as you do. And one of a lady by Christine got up, and she was doing the training. And one of the first things she said is, right, every single one of you in here today needs to go and put on a white coat. Because from this moment on, you are practically doctors and you are prescribing health and fitness. And it has stuck with me my entire career, because actually that's what we are doing. We are in the fitness industry. We are prescribing something wonderful that is game changing and life changing. And, it's very easy, I think, in, fitness operations to get caught up in the numbers and how much money we're making and all that sort of stuff. But actually at the core of it, we're lifesavers and we're changing lives. And that really is what we're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And we have a lot of work to do to bridge between the healthcare and fitness, physical activity, lifestyle medicine. We're still bridging those gaps, but I completely agree with you. And just to remind me, Steffi, from where you are today with Keepme, your role and your title, because obviously you've come through the ranks pretty quickly. You know, you've got a senior leadership role. So can we make sure we're using those titles here as well? Because also we talked previously about getting more women on boards, as they have done with Herman. And likewise, you're also on that trajectory and path. So give us a little bit of context around that, because you're probably being modest so far.
So I am COO here at Keepme. So yeah, have been since the December and thoroughly enjoy it and love it.
And are you sitting on the board or joining the board, visions of the board?
I am on the board as well. I often forget to talk about that bit, but yes, I am.
And then can I ask, Ian Mullane, how is it to work with him?
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
He is the most wonderful human being, and I am incredibly lucky to work with him.
He lives in the UK as well?
Yes. Yeah.
No, we had him as a speaker, as you know, last year at the EHFF. Yeah, he did a fantastic job. Yeah.
He has a good podcast as well with Ian, where he talks about his team, Steffi, yourself obviously included. You were called out numerous times, but you know, obviously, and Herman, you know this, right? In business, you need an excellent team to perform, you know, at the top of the table, top of the game. So the team, and I know no doubt he keep pushing. And you're a team. You're a team of experts, the team professionals who are pushing at the highest standards and are continuing to push the highest standards. So that the business continues to excel.
I have a philosophy of the 6 P's in business.
Go on.
Number 1, you want to hear more?
Please.
Okay. Number 1 is people. If you don't have the right people, you will not have the right product. If you don't have the right product that makes profits, you will not have the distribution, which is the P for place, to sell your product. And you won't have the money to do the promotion. It's the other P that you need to realize. So I have place, profit, product, people, promotion. Did I mention promotion? So promotion is then the one that you need to promote your product in order to sell it, and that ties it all together. But without the right people, it's like Jim Collins saying, you need to have the right people on the bus. It all starts with the right people, and before the right people, you will not be successful.
I like that. And what Steffi, you talked about there, prescription of exercise and physical activity, and we're in the health world here. And this is a big problem, right? The global inactivity, we have a global crisis. We also have a global inactivity crisis for women, about 5% more than for men in activity. So that's an issue. It's even worse for adolescent ages. And thank God I'm not there right now, and couldn't even think about going back there, especially with social media as it is today. So the bigger gap there. But also we have a health crisis as well, where we know our chronic diseases are trending in the wrong direction. Obesity, diabetes, cancers, depression, they're all trending in the wrong direction globally. And again, we have a gender gap there as well, where we have higher prevalence. And to be fair, we're also unearthing some of the research that we've defined as for these conditions is relevant for more male physiology than female. So the whole unearthing of all this. Now, that brings us back to the leadership. And Herman, what you talked about earlier on, like you said about right now, top 20 in the fitness industry is 0 females as senior executives. The board level is not a whole pile different from what I can see. So give us some context there, Herman. What are we going to do to create this balance? Because without the balance at the decision-making table, we're not possibly thinking about the entire population and serving that population in a way that is going to change these metrics.
Yeah. Well, let me first say something about legislation. I think it's been a good thing in Europeans. This is for stock market listed companies to begin with, to have the mantra that you need to have 30% female on the board, on the supervisory board, and 30% on your, that's not yet law, on the management board, I would say. I can only speak for Basic Fit. We have 30% female on the supervisory board. We have in Basic Fit we have 8,000 employees, half are male, half are female. And of the top 40 executives in the company, we have 38% females. So that is really, really, I think, a pretty good number there. However, overall, if we look at Europe, we're looking at 10%, female leadership in most companies. Of course, stock market listed companies have to report their percentage of female composition. But your question, how to get there, I think is a very tough one. In my view, it's not about male or female. It's about having the best person for the job. Mm-hmm. And whether that person is male or female, in my view, doesn't make any difference. But I think we need to help all the old-fashioned thinking people that are thinking that males are better than females. You need legislation. So I think the good thing is that there is legislation. The bad news is that we have a political movement in the US, starting with a government there, that is going totally against all this. And I'm afraid that Europe is not sticking to their guns in terms of saying, but we believe diversity is important. We don't believe that it should be male chauvinistic and autocratic in terms of the approach to our society. So I'm a little bit concerned about the wind blowing against us in this trend that we're heading against. They call it woke. It's not woke. It's nothing to do with woke. It's about, making us better as a society. And in terms of, you have some statistics on your website on male female composition on boards and better results. I can tell you from my experience, having a balanced team with male, female, and different cultures represented, you get better decisions. You get better discussions on any problem that you want to solve. And I think companies who do that see that. I think you quote the McKinsey study on that. There is some debate whether, the percentage, it's really 50% more or 15 or whatever the boost is. I know from my experience, it is better, whatever the percentage is. And it helps to have, people like McKinsey and big, names in business to say that it's good to have diversity to do that. The answer back to your question, how do we get there? I think it's by having the leaders in our industry to step up to the plate, and also the females to step up to the plate. And I'm not telling you any secrets, trying to get female speakers at the EHFF or any convention that we organize is sometimes difficult, because the good females we have are a little bit hesitant to step onto the podium to tell that story. So I think it is really also up to the leaders. We had Rebecca Passmore, I don't know whether you were at the EHFF this year. She did a fantastic job on the podium, but it was very hard to get somebody of the female leaders we have in our industry to be willing to step up to the podium to tell their story and to represent the female quality that we have in our industry. Mm. So it's on the one hand, the current CEOs who are mostly male to really realize that they need to have more diversity within their company. And secondly, I think for the female leaders we have to be more vocal about what they can bring to the table, as you're doing very well with the collective, Grace, and your colleagues, to shout, to use your megaphone and say, hey, we're here, we can help you become better companies. So it's a little bit of a two-edged sword to do both. But I think it'll take time. You see a little bit of increase in the percentage of female representation, forgetting about our industry, but overall in business. But it's not getting there fast enough because we need to do those two things. But I don't have a magic, I don't have a silver bullet. I don't have the magic answer. Otherwise, I would have done it a long time ago. But it'll take time. It's a cultural thing too in some countries. Yeah. The Nordics, of course. Yeah, if you look at the Nordics, Norway, Sweden, Finland, they have a much bigger female representation than some European countries. Even though Italy has a female prime minister now, which may help also to. If you look at politics, how many female prime ministers do we have in countries?
Well, can't see, can't be, right? So the more representation we have, as you said, on stage, the more people are inspired and feel comfortable to step up and follow. So it is very important. And FIBA was interesting, for example, because I know I was working with two of the stage organizers who had, prior to the event, had asked for introductions of a number of females, which I happily provided a list. But not all got selected, and on the day, was there an imbalance? There was. But even though we had solved for that problem, because I agree with you, it takes a little bit more work to get women to go, I'm happy to get on the stage and talk and so on, because likewise society has taught us to be quiet and weak and so on. Yeah. but we still have to select. So that, to your point, there's two sides to this problem that need to be addressed separately. One is more females on that list, which I think we're doing a good job of getting more lists. And actually, Herman, I must make sure you're aware as well. I'll repost it. There's a list right now. I think it's over 600, now 700 women in Europe who are professionals in their background, as well as have literally joined a list to be collective speakers, happy to be on the stage, willing, competent, capable, and are able to do that. So that's ultimately the directory, right? Kind of saying you don't need to know half of these because we appreciate everyone lives in a bubble, but you don't need to know them. What are you looking for? What skill set? What country? What industry? And there's a list of it. So, and likewise, we're continuing to push that. But to your point, then, is if we present a list of great speakers, then it needs to be respected, and that there's ultimately speakers chosen from that list as well then. So that's still a barrier, because that didn't happen this year equally. And again, we had solved that problem, I think. Steffie, you were part of this. Jump in.
Yeah, I think to jump in there, I think, there is also this element with any of these events where it's a pay to play. Yeah. And as much as many people say it isn't, it is. It is very much pay to play. It is the same businesses, the same people going up, all of the time, where actually we probably even need to challenge, okay, I get this pay to play model works and, there's a reason, but then we need to challenge those businesses and, organizers need to be a bit more forthright and say, okay, actually, we need the best people in the room. What is the topic that we're going to actually speak about? And then we need the best people in the room around that topic, not so-and-so from company A because they always get up and, they pay us good money. Actually, it's about who are the best people. And to your point, Herman, around diversity, I recently did a post and I think it got taken, Grace can probably speak to this, it got taken a little bit the wrong way at times because it was about males versus females. And it wasn't about that at all. It was more about actually, let's just have the right people in the room and, having the people with the knowledge as such and the diversity. It wasn't necessarily about pitting males and females against each other. It was more about actually having those right people with the knowledge behind them.
And I think if we flip the script here a little bit, I feel like, to your point, Steffie, right, there's a bit of a pay to play and we celebrate the same companies because they put money on the table, and that's obviously necessary as well. But I mean, we know we need to grow the industry. We need more people to be physically active. So if we set a stage of, we want to look at topics and conversations that are going to help us grow a number of people getting physically active and part into the sector. And then maybe flip it the other way around, saying, let's put that as the target, as the strategic goal that we want every speaking panel and every presentation to be aiming for, and then invite ultimately the experts in the topics. And I think if we flip the script and make sure we're clear on the strategic goal, we may end up getting completely different topics being presented, different research being presented, and different people within different businesses being presented as well, which, to your point, then makes sure that it's growing the sector, it's growing the industry, it's solving for a global problem. And it'll naturally lead into diversity of expertise, background, countries, companies, and so on. Because I think we have to flip the script though to do it properly. Otherwise, we are going to see the same faces, the same topics, the same, no offense, boring subjects being discussed year on year and year on year. We're like, we get it.
No,
What's
absolutely
different?
right.
What's new?
If we want to grow, our mantra is 100 million members in Europe by 2030. We need to reach to new target groups. Of course, the potential is 50% male, 50% female. That's not the issue. But I thought also we need to reach out to the deconditioned, to the people who today, feel intimidated, the intimidation aspect. We have with Basic Fit, we now have, I think, 50 women-only clubs. Let's think about the Muslim population, where males and females are not allowed to train together. So you need to have separate clubs for females. I think FitX in Germany have separate female areas, where women can train on their own if they would like to. So I think we need to really, you're totally right, Grace, if we want to get to making it more, open for everybody, we need to think differently and get different inputs and do different things. And after all, we're a representation of society, our industry. It's also about the older, we have a very young profile still in our industry in terms of the customers. We need to reach out to the older folks. I was involved. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's interesting talking about that. I was chatting with an operator recently. They're talking about, why they're not getting new leads and, the sales and everything. And we spoke about we looked at actually a recent marketing campaign, and it was very, let's just say it targeted the 16 to 18%, depending which country you're in, the population that actually have a gym membership. But what about those that don't, that are, as you just said, gym intimidation, those that are too scared to walk in the door or don't know where to start? I like to say I've surrounded myself with people that are fitness and everything, but I've got one friend in my group, and we were talking about the way that she feels about herself. And I said, well, why don't you get into some fitness and get into the gym? And she is so scared to even start. And it made me realize we're not doing a great job, because she probably represents a majority of people, that they are too scared. So how do we break that down? How do we give them other alternatives? And I know that there are others out doing, running clubs and walking groups and all sorts of stuff, but we're still not doing a good enough job, because there are still people out there that are still don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance, Steffi, in Riyadh to visit any of the female-only clubs?
I didn't go to Riyadh.
Okay. Oh, yes. So I found it interesting because I'd never been in a female-only club, and went and worked out in one. Actually visited about 4 and got a great tour, and it was fascinating. And Herman, there's definitely an opportunity in this. The vast majority of gyms, their equipment was the usual equipment for suppliers, who had no female sales representatives or no female service engineers. So it's like, so what do you do if something's broken down? And obviously, as equipment gets used, there's signs on some. They're like, we've no idea when it's going to get fixed, because we have to.
Well, they may come at night when the clubs are closed, maybe, or something, or they close the club for a couple of hours so that the male technician can come in to fix it.
It's crazy,
but,
right? So the opportunity here is more female engineers are needed at these supplier organizations.
That also.
More female sales representatives, and more ultimately breadth of team on it, because they're not using it. But I found it fascinating, Herman, because I've never had an issue working out in a gym before. But it was definitely more comfortable. Steffi, I won't lie to you, I felt way more comfortable working out in a female-only gym. I had just zero confidence issues. I had zero intimidation, and it did feel different. And I was genuinely going, I would do this in Ireland. I would do this in the UK. I would opt for this. It is a different vibe. So to your point, and I'm thankfully fit, active, have been in gyms all of my life. So I'm not the person who's never been in the door. But if I was someone who's never been in the door, it definitely takes away a significant challenge.
Yeah.
So we've got to look at it, I think, really, really closely.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, you wrote this fantastic paper with Dr. Lou Atkinson on the GLP-1 trend, and so many people using it. I mean, strength training is going to be key. That is one of the things that we're underutilizing in our communication to the society at large, that our industry can help you to really keep your muscle mass and not lose it. So how many advertising that we do for our industry shows fit, young, already slim people, who don't. So when I go to a birthday party and say, what do you do? Oh, I'm in the fitness industry. And say, oh yeah. I need to lose a few more kilos before I can join. They think you need to be fit before you go to a gym. Come on, it's there to help you to lose that weight, not only with training, but with nutrition advice, with stress management, all the things that, the holistic approach to our sector, I think, needs a lot more attention than just, bodybuilding or working out so you can run the marathon better.
But it needs to be very intentional. To your point there, Herman, that report that Dr. Lou Atkinson wrote was around GLP-1s, and in that it talked about the environment, which is very, very important. Steffi talked about it there as well.
Yeah.
You talked about as well the marketing. If you're going to market to a population who are overweight, well, then you need to have images of people who are overweight, right? If you're going to talk to a population who are over 40, you need to have images of people that are over 40. If you're talking about strength training, you need to have images of people who have yet to achieve, muscle definition. Like, think about the population you're trying to pull in those doors, and then think about the environment when they come in those doors. It's very, very intentional, and it's not the same old, just put equipment in a space, add a membership, make it affordable, and open up 24/7 or whatever hours you're going to open. That's not good enough. So we really have to be intentional and thinking about the audience that we're catering for, because it's not working. You're absolutely right.
I have a good example of that. I was involved, no longer today, so I have no financial interest. There was a company in Stockholm called Active Age. And Active Age is a small club concept for older people. And the advertising shows older people. And they go there to exercise, but also to drink a coffee, to read the local newspaper. They organize wine tasting evenings. It's like a community. But I think when I was involved, the youngest member was 65 and the oldest was 95, and anything in between, male, female. So the social element was important, in addition to doing something for, and particularly muscle training, of course, muscle mass. We all know about sarcopenia. You need to start doing something very active for your muscles. So that concept will grow. And I know in the UK, there is some activity in the senior market as well, but that's a huge untapped market. With a growing, we're all growing older, and the European, the tree of society in terms of age building is going more and more to our direction. So the industry has a big opportunity to change from having a very young profile to having a across the board profile in terms of, and that, as you say, Grace, needs different marketing and needs different approach to also programming. And why not have pensioners who are PE teachers as personal trainers, rather than a 19-year-old personal trainer who maybe somebody of 75 would feel very uncomfortable with, would feel okay with a PE teacher that has the experience.
And with all of our talk about retention, that community, I mean, I've no doubt a lot of those members, they only deactivate their membership when they die, right? They're members for life.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's retention.
Yeah.
That community factor is retention.
It's a great concept. Yeah.
Steffie, with all that you do with Keepme, what do you see from a gender balance perspective, whether it's leads or usage or membership or retention? Is there where does the data tell you anything from a gender balance?
Yeah, it definitely is male heavy, male dominated, definitely. And, I obviously recently put out some stats around females in the industry, but also within tech. Women hold, I think, nearly 29% of tech roles. That's it. And a lot, we know as an industry, or any industry, we're moving to more, we've got agents now, we're a tech savvy, industry is not the right word, but it's a tech savvy life. And if you're not using tech, then you're going to get left behind. So actually, more to your point, Herman, about actually having people involved, we do need people that are older, younger, because we all have different experiences. If I go off and design something, let's just say, I don't know, even for the fitness industry, maybe it's an app around getting you involved in, some sort of fitness group or whatever, that's pointless, me designing that, because I designed that with my blinkers on. I need someone, like Herman, like Grace. I need someone maybe that's 19, 20. I need all different backgrounds and ethnics and all sorts of stuff, because that is how then we evolve. So it is a big part in tech, but it's also a big part in fitness industry as well. We actually need that diversity, because that's how we evolve and get better.
I did a podcast recently with Dave Stalker and Pinky Gadali, and we were talking about the differences between mentorship, coaching, and sponsorship. And I think we're getting better at mentorship, right? And lots of us have mentors now. I feel like a lot of us need mentors. Coaching is interesting because there's obviously a professional around coaching, and I think that's growing naturally. But sponsorship is actually where I think we need to lean in order to change some of these, metrics. To your point, Steffie, and I see it's happening a little bit where, somebody's saying, I'm not the expert for this, but if you should talk to, A, B, or C, because they are actually experts in this, or they're interested and they will learn an awful lot by being in the room or part of the project or whatever. Herman, is there much talk about that at the tables that you're at around sponsorship? I mean, is it still a term that we're talking about because we don't understand it, or is it fully embedded and it's already happening?
I think it is underrated. I must honestly say that I think we could do a lot better job in that. If we're talking about onboarding of members, but we also talk about onboarding of employees, people starting to work in our organization, and to team up somebody with somebody's already longer in the organization, to help that person to be feeling at home and finding the way to the bathroom, so to speak, would tremendously help. And if that person also can help giving tips on how to become a better leader, how to be, usually, we say, oh, it's the boss, who needs to help the person, their subordinates, to become better. But usually they're not the best people to help them to get better. You need some expert for that. And bigger companies, have an HR department, and there is training tools, and there is onboarding tools that are let's say on the web and on site. But I think if you connect people with each other, it's a much quicker and better way to do that. And I totally believe that we could do a much better job in our industry in having that sponsorship as well as the coaching in building our teams. Yeah.
Steffie, what's your thoughts on it? Because I'm conscious that I do talk about Ian Milan earlier on, and obviously he's a great mentor as well as sponsor for not just people within the team, but actually beyond the Keepme team as well. What's your thoughts on sponsorship? Do you see it? Do you feel it? Have you witnessed it?
Yeah, absolutely. I do start to see it more and more, I think, because we, as the likes of yourself, the likes of even Jen, and also we're challenging that. We're starting to open those conversations, whereas before I think everyone used to be in silos, and probably it was within your own team you might have the mentorship, but actually now we're starting to open that up. I still think that there's more opportunity, but we're definitely seeing it more and more.
Yeah, and I know that I harp on about it. And Herman, we have a separate WhatsApp, women's only WhatsApp, where I'm possibly the one with the stick being like, get your LinkedIn up to date, put your name forward for the stage, get on the job perspective, update your CV. And to your point, there's two sides of this, women stepping up more, and at the same time, then the door being open when we get there to stepping up. So there needs to be two aspects that we're talking about intentionally.
Yeah. Maybe just a quick comment on that. I think also we need to be in building our teams, not to work in silos. You see too many people who stay in sales or stay in marketing or stay in customer service, or to have people to rotate within the company doing different jobs in different departments, because that's how you learn to understand the real business. And you said before, Steffie, it starts. All our business starts at the shop floor or the club floor. That's where it starts. Too many of us in management stay in the ivory tower of the headquarters or the office. I had a rule in my companies, at least 2 days a month, you need to go out in the field, whether it was in tennis, to go out to the tennis club and talk to the tennis pros, what rackets they use, what they're doing, and in live fitness, to go out in the clubs and talk to the club owners, what their needs, what are their issues, what their problems. And in our industry in fitness, if you work in the marketing department at Basic Fit in headquarters, you work 2 days a week, a month in a club, just not with your manager hat on. No, just you work, you clean the toilets, you swipe the floor, and that's how you learn what the real issues are in the industry, because it's all about the operational side of our sector that will make us better in many ways. And that is where too often we get bogged down, as you said before, in the numbers, in the profitability, and the planning, and the marketing programs, and next year's budgets, and whatever it is. And we forget about the day-to-day issues that are really making or breaking. One customer happy every day will mean a customer that stays for longer. And I think you mentioned the word retention. It's all about getting the members to get their results that they're striving for. And that takes hard work on a day-to-day basis in the clubs. And of course, we have, and of course, Basic Fit is a high value, low price concept with very few staff. You better have very good. If you have few people on the floor, you better be good and know what they're doing, rather than they're sitting behind their computer and looking at their whatever they're looking at, instead of talking to the members. So that just as a 5 cents on. It's all in the detail, in the operation. That's where we need to be better and paying more attention.
It is very interesting, Herman, because I see the shift from hierarchical, leadership styles and structures to more matrix structures.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. If you've spent, 20, 30, 40 years in a hierarchical leadership style, it is hard to shift. And it's because, and to your point, you know, we're talking about a balance here of different diverse of ages and genders and ethnicities and cultures. And that brings with it a necessary collaboration structure, which is that matrix structure with it. And I think if we are to move from the hierarchical structure today, where we have, you know, the older demographic, and you know, you said it as well, right? Pale male in particular, we need to operate structures and projects, at least in a matriarchal structure, so that we can get that level of understanding of how does this work. Because if you don't understand how matrix structure works, it's really hard to adapt to it. And you probably won't do it at the company structure, without having done it at a project structure. So I think we need to be embedding those structures. And Steffi, I'm sure when you're working across organizations, you're bringing together quite a diverse range across the business in that matrix, in that collaboration, you know, project team. And they said, not all the time is there the senior leaderships within that project team. So we need to, I think, as you said, be proactive, be active in those matrix in order to understand it. It's a very different way of working.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I have a question, and this is just to go back a couple of steps. Sorry. We speak there about, you know, we have to be willing to open the door, you know, and I think we're talking about speakers, we're talking about opportunities, we're talking about, you know, all sorts of stuff there. But how do we get that door opened?
How do we get that door opened? Well, I think it is the mindset of the leadership to begin with, you know, and I can only speak for the companies that I've been involved with, and from a basic fit point of view, where we, as a strategy, first of all, equal pay. You know, there is no difference between the same job, whether it's a male or a female fulfilling that role, same pay. And I know there is still disparity. I think the recent statistics showed us a 10% difference between male and female compensation for the same jobs. That's unacceptable. You know, so that's number one. Number two, that when we start recruiting, that we look at, you know, equal opportunity, really make sure that we have a good balance in terms of the male and the female representation, but looking at the quality of the person. But if we have a choice between equal quality and it's a male and a female, we'll go for the female in order to really get to this 50% in terms of the workforce in the company. And I really believe that legislation, the European legislation, will help in forcing companies to think more about this diversity issue. And it's definitely a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. But those are the two things that we need to emphasize.
The one thing to add to that, Herman, and I think you mentioned it, as most countries have a mandate where at the board level, for at least for public listed companies, you know, 30%. As of June 26th, it is 40%. Yeah. So companies that are listening that are on, or companies that, especially if you're on a board, it's listed companies, you have to have at least 40% gender balance by June 2026. There is a penalty otherwise. Yeah. You know, 40% still isn't representative, right? That's getting you on the right direction. And I've got this love-hate relationship with man being mandated. It feels like you're using the stick to say you've got to change your way of thinking, but it does move the needle faster, because otherwise, to your point, we can wait 100 years for pay equity. We can wait 20 years for gender balance at boards, and we can go, you know what? Let's get on with it. Let's get it done today. It's not like there's lack of females who are qualified. Yeah. Right? It's not. That's not the problem. There's not. 60% of graduates in universities in pretty much most areas are female. So qualifications aren't the challenge. And then, as you mentioned there, Herman, coming in the door, we actually have more females coming in the door usually. Not all jobs, you know, engineering is still very much more male dominated and so on. So there's different factors in that. But the mandate of having necessary gender balance, or 40% at least, by June 26th, I think just gets us faster to the door. Now, we're going to see that, Steffi, I'm sure you've already seen it. There's lots of resistance, and I'm having debates about positive discrimination, and I'm like, but there's been 100 years of positive discrimination towards men. There has been. Like, let's be fair, the society we live in is not balanced because there's been positive discrimination for one party. And I know that equality looks like oppression to the person to the oppressor. So all of these factors are massively changing, and This is where I love the podcast, because it allows us, and allows likes of Herman, to be coming to the table but speaking, because a lot of men are going to listen to Herman as a man who's of experience and of mass, influence, because that's where we need to also, this is the male mindset change. It's a female mindset change, which we can take up with the mantle of, but there's an element here we have to have more intentional conversations, because it is a mindset shift, as well as a structural shift, as well as legislation, as well as making sure that we're all conscious of being part of the solution. And I think, Steffi, to be fair, there's still a lot of work of every person going, am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? And there's an awful lot sitting on the fence going, sure, it's not really my problem. You're like, yeah, no, it is. I'm a big believer. Whatever the problem is, whether it's climate change or gender balance, you sit on some side of the fence. You just may not be conscious of it. So,
but also, I think, Grace, back to the example, we know the largest fitness company in the world, called Planet Fitness, is now a female CEO, Colleen Keating, right?
Yeah.
Rebecca Passmore is the number 2 in Pure Gym. We have Francine Davis, in Pure Gym. We have Silke Frank, the event director of FIBO. We have Erika Hahn in Basic Fit, who is part of the 4-member management board as the chief marketing officer. We have Johanna Riarvi in Finland, who's running a fantastic chain of clubs, in the largest chain now in Finland. We have Susan Turner, who run in the Middle East Pure Gym. We have Shaden Hamad Al-Sagri, the lady you met probably at FIBO from Lead Gem. So there is a lot of examples of ladies who are taking fantastic jobs in our industry. Steffi, you're another example, as you are, Grace, as is Jennifer, as is Suzanne de Schepper. So we need to get more visibility for all of you to show that, hey, that there is high quality of female leaders in this company, in this organization, and in this industry. Yeah, sorry, somebody. Yeah. Yeah, what was that?
Question. Okay, so a lot talked about there. Let's look forward for a little bit. What's the most exciting, I suppose, aspect, for one, that I'd like you guys to share? What's the most exciting thing you think is going to happen in the next 5 years? So when we're sitting back here, whether it's FIBO or Riyadh Active or Beyond Active or whatever, what's the exciting thing we're going to be talking about? And then likewise, I would actually like to get your thoughts on as well, from all of your experiences and all of your learnings, what would you want to make sure the next batch of leaders or the next 5 years is being conscious of and learning from? Like, what are the lessons that need to be learned from in order for the next 5 years, 10 years to be much more successful, that we do solve this inactivity and health crisis that we're sitting in? Steffi, do you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. First point would be AI agents, I think. There is a race to being the first billion-dollar company with under 30 people in the team. And that's not just within, tech as a whole, but also the fitness industry. AI agents are definitely the way forward. We talk about SaaS businesses, and, before that it was the World Wide Web and all that sort of stuff, whereas now it's all about AI agents. And, we keep talking about AI, but definitely, I think in 5 years' time, you will look back, and if you didn't do it, you would definitely have been left behind or non-existent.
Excellent. Yeah. And it's obviously Keepme is well ahead of making sure that that's available to every company intelligently.
I think there's this stigma sometimes behind AI, and particularly around agents. I was going to take people's jobs, or the data around it and all that sort of stuff. And all valid points, but it also opens opportunities. It makes your team smarter. It allows them, as you said, Herman, before, you've got people within Basic Fit, there's 1 or 2 team members, and actually there's a whole business that needs to run, and it needs to be efficient. And this is where, agents come into play, and actually, all that sort of admin sort of stuff can happen, and it allows then the team member to have those real valuable in-person conversations. So, AI isn't something that happens in another industry or something that you do with your banking app or anything like that. It is also happening in the fitness industry.
Love it. Herman?
Yeah, well, back to my P for people. I think we need to, there is a good American expression that says, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. And I think our industry is not famous for paying good wages or paying people a decent salary for whatever they're doing. So we try to get the cheapest, lowest wage possible. So number one, I think we need to start investing in our people and making sure that the people we hire are also coming from outside the industry, because we can learn a lot from hospitality, we can learn a lot from retail. So in fitness companies, to bring in people, have the fitness experts, but also bring in people who know more about artificial intelligence, who know more about digitalization of our sector, who know more about the hospitality side of our industry. So making it more broad and more holistic in terms of the makeup of our teams in our fitness industry. Secondly, I think we need to connect more with the health sector in society. We need to really position us as a force for good, and that we are here to help society become more healthy. As a side note, statistics are very clear. We had a great speaker at the EHFF who said, we're spending of our so-called health budget in all of Europe or all of the world, we spend 95 on making 6 people a little bit less sick, yeah? And we spend 5% of the budget on prevention. And we're part of the prevention sector in our sector, in the health and fitness sector, and we need to really do a stronger lobby. And here is where the associations, play a major role, Europe Active being the one in Europe, to tell the politicians that we are here to help people to live healthier lives. So that's the other thing we need to do, a stronger lobby for the sector with the policymakers and with the health care community. And I think the other thing we just need to do is make the product a little bit more attractive for those who are not yet members in our sector. We have in Europe 10% on average, and of course the UK has 15% and Sweden 22%, but on average it's 10% of the population is member of a health club. That's in US it's 23, by the way. It's 23. So even if we can double the market, just get to the closer to the US level of fitness penetration, but we need to do things different. If you continue the same thing, you get the same results, right? So we need to do things differently, and that means rethink our programming, rethink the diversity of offering we have for different populations, all the demographics, the deconditioned, the people who are using GLP-1 and be attractive to them in terms of strength training, younger people, gamification. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of things we can do different in order to make our industry more attractive to a broader population. So, and then the other thing is maybe a little bit less financially driven, a little bit more what's good for the customer rather than what's good for the shareholder. I mean, we have a lot of companies that are private equity backed, and I have nothing against private equity. I'm a fan of private equity, but we need to have a bit more of a longer term vision on what we're doing and how we're approaching our industry in order to make it sustainable for the long term. And that means sometimes investing, big time 1 year and then maybe having the harvest a few years later and not having a short-term perspective on any investment we do. So those would be my sort of 4 key points in terms of what we need to do for the next 5 to 10 years in order to make our industry even better. And it is already fantastic. I mean, I keep on saying, what industry would you rather be in than this industry? Yeah, I mean, we're a fun industry where we're competing, but not competing with knives on the neck. People talk to each other, competitors talk to each other, whether it's on the supplier side or on the club side. So I think we're in a great space, but it can be better, and that's why we need to be like in sport. If we would not have competition, we would still run the 100 meters in 13 seconds. So you need competition to get better, and I think a good competition will make us all better.
Steffi, you talked there about the drive for the smallest number of people ultimately and the highest valuation, and Herman's talked about people as well. I think most people who come into the world of fitness, health, and so on want to deal with people, and you called it out rightly. I mean, I love technology, obviously, but I don't want to spend time on administration. So the efficiencies are huge. But also, as we were talking about here, the 80-90% of the population who we're not reaching, we're not going to have enough people to be able to do that and do it efficiently as well as effectively. So those AI agents are critical to help streamline reach as well as streamline onboarding and streamline getting people to be active it also brings in the knowledge there, Herman. You talk about like GLP-1s being one factor. I talk about menopause a lot at the moment. And likewise, we're not using any of these terms in our marketing, but also we're not leveraging the science behind them in order to attract and retain and engage that member either. And it's impossible for people to be knowledgeable on every aspect of health. I completely get that, which is exactly why AI agent and support tools are necessary, because I can be knowledgeable on a member who walks in the door with obesity on a GLP-1, never strength trained before, more than likely has anxiety or depression, COPD or asthma, and possibly, has got a cancer scare in their medical history. So like there's a complexity within a normal person that we need to be appreciative of, and hence why AI allows us to pull in science and research and going, what do I need to be using here? And it's a whole bunch of really cool tools that I see outside the fitness sector that I'd love to be able to integrate in, but I just don't think they're ready, because to your point is we're still working on the basics around retention and getting people in the door efficiently, and AI agents to do so to help us to reach that masses efficiently. So yeah, there's a huge opportunity, and I think you're right. 5% of budgets go on preventative care in healthcare. That's not good enough. But every system is also busting at the seams with people who are sick. Again, going back to, it's like the never-ending cycle, right? If you're physically inactive, yes, you will have more conditions. If you have conditions, should be physically active, yes, you can. Management, treatment, prevention, and maintenance. So huge opportunity for sure, which is where I get very excited about the future.
I think also, to jump in there, the answers we require are in the data, and we now have access to that data. You look at things like, and I know ChatGPT and Claude, and there's lots out there, but you could go and build a model around all of those things, being an expert in obesity, being an expert in, rehab after cancer, all of those things, and you have access to that at your fingertips, which just gives, our team members so much knowledge and so much power, and then be able to actually access those people and influence them the way we need to.
80% of data, I understand, is not used.
Oh, yeah, maybe even more than 80%.
Well, it is. Some of the stats I've heard recently, 80% is not used, and 90% of data was only created in the last 3 years. So
yeah,
at this rate of change, if we're not using data effectively, we're just missing out significant opportunities to personalize and be able to cater for people of what they actually need. Because it's not lack of data, it's not lack of research, it's not lack of solutions, it's lack of using it. And
but
the intentional.
I think, Grace, you have an Apple background, but what I love about the Apple Watch is that gives me data that tells me something that I can do with.
Insights.
Having the data is one thing, but what does it mean for me? How do I need to change my business or change my attitudes or my behavior in order to get to a certain result? And I think that is where the crux is. Data, there's more data than we ever can consume. But what are the relevant data? The few KPIs that I need to be watching in order to run my business or to change my behavior.
Let's be efficient, but also let's use that data to drive the future. Very, very relevant. Steffie, last question, because I know we could talk about this for hours, and hopefully we'd be over another conference. We'll be talking about, again, opening up the door, making sure that there's a backlog of people at the door to come through it as well. But give me some shout outs. We talked about already, mentioned some leaders in the space already. Who are the female leaders that we should be watching out for, that we need everybody listening, as well as more people, to be aware of, that we have visibility on more female leaders? Who are they, Steffie, from your perspective?
Yeah, good question. I think there's the usuals that we always talk about, but there's a couple I want to mention. So there's one by the name of Steph Nicholson. She resides over in Australia. She is the managing director, or I think that's her title now, within Fitstop, but she's been involved in brands, Lift brands. She's been involved in Good Life Health Clubs. She's an actual professional triathlete herself. And she is one of the most dedicated females I think I have ever met. And she definitely deserves a shout out. I also probably want to shout out my team. I think we have quite a few of us on our team, and that is right from our onboarding specialist Tash, who is just fantastic, through to our product and engineering director Michelle, and obviously Hillary, that sits in marketing as well. And the other one probably I really want to mention here within the UK, I think I introduced you to her the other week, is Julie Allen. I think she is a fantastic individual, and she's very humble, and I think she deserves a little bit more time in the space as well. So definitely lots out there. I could probably talk for hours and hours on them.
Excellent shout outs. I don't know all of them, so I'll definitely ask for introductions and make sure we can get some on the podcast. And Julie is definitely on my list to get in a podcast too, because likewise, as Herman mentioned around the insights, she's got a volume of information in that head. It's amazing. And she's a great human. So yes, definitely. Thank you, Steffi. Herman, you've already listed a whole plethora of great leaders in the space as well. Who else do we need to make sure that we're following, supporting, making sure they're visible? Who else do we need to be conscious of?
Yeah, no, other than the people I mentioned, who are already, I think, relatively visible, I think there is a number of talents that I know from within Basic Fit, that are really, really very, very good people. That there is people within all organizations. There is a lady in Fitix in Germany. I will send those names to you.
Please.
Because I think you probably want to reach out to them and make them part of your network. Again, I already mentioned those names. That may be also interesting people for your next podcast. Well, and if you don't have contact details for the names I mentioned, I'm happy to send you their contact details.
Yeah, and thank you. And I think this is really important as we talk about here visibility, because to your point, we have great leaders, we have great people across industry. They're just not as visible. So yes, let's make sure we're consistently adding visibility to those already doing great work and already significant opportunities for the future to help all businesses and the sector at large. So thank you, guys.
All right.
I know we covered a lot of topics.
I think it was a great talk. Thank you for having me, Grace.
You're
nice
welcome.
meeting you, Steffi. Hopefully we'll see each other live at a future event in our wonderful industry.
Absolutely. Thanks, Grace, and thanks, Herman. It's been a fantastic chat, so greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Connecting the Dots. If today sparked a new idea, helped shift your thinking, or gave you something to take forward, share it, rate the show, or drop us a message. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next conversation. Until then, keep connecting the dots that matter.